Senor Ryan was born on December 12, 1994. Long story short, his parents gave him up as a child and he ended up being raised by a family of Mexican narcos. After spending the majority of his childhood around his Mexican family, once Senor was 18 years old, he packed up and set sail in his beat-up Dodge Charger for a city by the name of Los Santos. The young Senor would then submit to a life of crime much like his family before him, where he would do petty crimes, robbing gas stations, and selling weed. Was a pretty average day for Mr. Ryan. He would do a great job of keeping his name clear from the public records of the LSPD. So, in the average day of Senor, he would take a trip down to the countryside where he would harvest his weed. While harvesting his weed, he would meet an incest family of brothers named the Pendiggers. The incest family would unite with Senor, helping him sell and harvest weed all throughout their days. The weed game would end up proving to the group that it just wasn't enough money to keep them afloat in Los Santos. With local dispensaries moving in, their profits got smaller, forcing them to find a new path in the crime scene. For the sake of time in this arc, Senor would go on to meet more and more people while the Pendigger family somehow kept getting bigger, with more brothers and more cousins and more sisters every day. This would all lead to them forming a gang that wore all digital camo. Yeah, I have no clue why we made the choice on all digital camo. I think it was just because that was one of the only untaken colors in the city. Anyway, the gang would grow in numbers by the day, forming one of the actual biggest street gangs known to the city. They would spend their days guarding meth labs, weed fields, and taking down other street gangs. This was it. Senor was finally living the life of a crime lord, much like his parents did before him, and making a lot of money doing so. And all was going well, until it wasn't. The biggest street war from what used to be an underground gang had gone underway as the Camo Boys, who never had a name, battled for turf and life against the highly known MBG, and that's when Senor got a phone call. All 23 members of the gang were executed. At this point, there was only one member who stood alive, and you guessed it, Senor Ryan. The true whereabouts of Senor on this cold day are actually unknown, forcing to take a step back and realizing his entire friends and people he called family were now gone. Senor questioned his ways and actions, wondering if the life he's living was worth everything that it cost him. Months after the lives of his friends were taken, Senor decides to use his street skill and knowledge in a different way, by applying to be an officer of the LSPD. Senor hoped to rewrite his wrongs and find a different way of getting justice for his fallen brothers. Although he was never able to make an arrest on the MBG members that slaughtered his family, he found ways of taking other bad criminals off the street and being a great stand-up officer serving alongside his partner, Brian fucking Anderson. Hey, whoa, now I gotta actually get you, dude.
Oh, hell no.
Boy, you got coke on you, man. God damn.
Oh, man, that ain't my...
I'm a corrupt cop, but you want to ride to the hardware store?
Shit, man, come on.
Yeah, I can give you a ride.
Oh, hell yeah. Hey, man, let me hold $20, man. What the fuck? Get your hands off me, man.
Anderson and Ryan had a great run together as partners, making many arrests and stopping bank heists before they even got started. Officer Anderson and Senor had a lot of great time together as young officers. Probably even stories they would tell to their grandkids. But all good things must come to an end, and this is where the story gets flipped once again. As I said, the story is about to completely change the way Senor and the character was formed, creating his iconic white button-up look with his little coke stash and taking him back down a road of crime, while also giving Senor one of the most hated protagonists in his history. It all started with the partners pulling the graveyard shift down at the MRPD. As Senor was booking an individual on drug charges, a call comes over the radio. A guy in a bird mask just fucking took me. Little did Senor know he would later on meet the guy behind the bird mask in an altercation right outside of the Mission Row Police Department.
Hey, Johnny Sins, what the fuck, my guy?
First off, I want to formally apologize for that damage I put on your car. That would be covered on the I don't give a fuck.
Alright, that's about $500 in cash, my friend. Hey, officer, what's your name?
It's Officer Ryan.
Officer Ryan, alright? Hey, you know Officer Anderson? Yeah, well, ask him what I've done to him before, my friend.
And for some reason, the two just clicked. Senor would start calling out of his PD shifts to go do things with David Gilligan or the Plague Doctor, or, whatever the hell he wanted to call himself. He's the Plague Doctor. David Gilligan and the Plague Doctor are the same guy, basically. But anyway, whatever he is, bird, man, doesn't matter. The pair together was not good for Senor's path to redemption, and that would become apparent after Officer Anderson would perform a traffic stop on the two. With Senor and David having more than enough drugs and dirty money and a homeless man in their vehicle to get locked up for the next 20 years, Senor acted off his instinct and would shoot Brian Anderson, wounding him so severely that he would go into a coma and upon waking up couldn't remember what happened to him. Little did Senor know Mr. Anderson indeed remembered him, but was looking to take justice into his own hands. What a corrupt bastard. After all of the call-outs and skipped shifts, Senor would be fired from the police department, but he didn't care. Him and David Gilligan would begin to cook up one of the biggest coke running schemes in the city, to help get them a power position within the streets of Los Santos. Having so many run-ins with Officer Anderson and even an attempt to have Senor murdered, the pair would soon realize he would be a problem in their scheme. Avoiding all contact with the cops, they would spend most of their time flying planes and stockpiling their coke stash, becoming one of the biggest coke runners within the city. Okay, so this is where the story gets iffy. Me and David did run together 24/7. Eventually, the server we played in would actually shut down. We kind of struggled to find other servers that were half decent, so we're going to do an honorable mentions before we're getting into the now main storyline, where we're going to see some time jumps and Senor kind of gets older and all that. So, Senor and David would serve as sheriffs in another city, which if you pay attention to any of the series videos, you'll notice that I occasionally add a little Easter eggs to Senor, such as wearing a sheriff's baseball hat or using the same hat without the patches or old police gear. Also, Anderson was a sheriff with us, but the beef between the two had stayed the same, and that's kind of just something that's never changed.
To be honest, I haven't seen him in a while, so he hasn't said anything.
I didn't ask if you've seen him yesterday or the day before or fucking last night in your mother's bedroom, S.A.
Yes, sir. You also know that you have a tail light out, correct? Yeah. Sir, you have a tail light out.
Gave me a citation for it, but that's another
Well,
thing.
are we here for the citation, Your Honor?
All right,
we're
that's what
not.
I'm gonna give you.
So, we're all caught up on Senor's humble beginnings into our most recent timeline. I'm not going to go in depth on it, but I will leave a link to the previous video series if you guys would like to check that out before the new series comes out. Anyway, Senor Ryan returns to Los Santos as a matured 25-year-old, and his years of running cocaine with the plague doctor have come to an end. At this point, Brian Anderson is now the commissioner of the LSPD. With crime rates skyrocketing and street gangs running the streets and criminals getting richer, Senor felt like he couldn't stand by and watch it all happen. He would then threaten Brian Anderson with going to court over the commissioner job, and surprisingly, Anderson would step down, letting Senor take the reins of the LSPD's head man. With the past still haunting him, Senor would set up full recon on any operating street gangs in an attempt to wipe out all gang crime. He would come to find out that Brian Anderson was now forming one of his own. Now remember, Senor's a decent man, but bad habits are kind of bad habits, and Senor's full of bad habits. He not only took justice into his own hands, murdering 2 gang members and having those gangs fall afterwards, Senor would also attempt to murder Brian Anderson. Twice. But that's all we're going to touch on for the most recent storyline. Again, I'll have the links below to that series. In our current day and the upcoming series, Senor is now 29 years old, so basically a 4-year time jump between where he stepped down as commissioner or served as commissioner. So Senor did step down after being accused for these murders. He would also go into the courtroom for these murders and walk away as an innocent man. It's a fucked up world sometimes. Senor's current agenda is unknown, but only time will tell. As he gets older, he tends to look back on his life and wonder what he could have done differently and what the future holds for him. And with that being said, the series will make a return to the channel soon, but if you want to catch sneak peeks before then or check out the series I scrapped, head over to my Patreon. It helps support my small channel and you'll get exclusive content not seen here on the YouTube. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys are as excited for Senor to return as I am. I hope this series is able to blow the last one out of the water, providing some, comedic value to it and also being serious at the same time. And I hope we're really going to be able to kind of get more in depth with Senor's personality and, kind of the deeper things about the character that I never really showed in the series. I mean, we can clearly tell that he's got some problems, right? But that's another story for another day. And that's all for this one. Thanks for watching, and thanks for checking out this. And I hope to see you guys when the new series comes out. You better be there. If you're not there, I'm going to be very, very disappointed.